Today's episode is brought to you by Squarespace.
You're so vain. You probably think the song is about you. You're so vain. Omega has officially released an $18,000 Speedmaster that nobody asked for. I'm wearing a really neat French watch you've never seen. And today's episode is going to be great. We're going to finish off with an in-depth review of a great affordable dive watch from Vaer that I'm obsessed with. So let's get into Omega. Let's talk about what happened, why it happened, and why I think that this is a disaster. I think it's dumb. Disaster is a strong word. And yet still, the silver lining is these watches are absolutely gorgeous, and Omega's done a fantastic job. So critical and positive, as I generally try to be. So let's talk about it. Omega has released two new Speedmasters, which, we didn't really see coming because it's not release season. But over the last few years, Omega has consistently, resisted a traditional launch plan. Very unusual. The watch industry is a very traditional industry, and everything that's in the watch industry is very planned and consistent and predictable. And that's not a bad word. It's kind of a good word so far as the watch industry, has generally felt. But Omega has not been as regimented in previous years. Historically, they would do this Omega Days, launch, and it's like a big press thing, and they'd release basically all of their watches, or at least all of their most exciting watches, and that was it. Now, it's kind of a trickle, and they're really relying on the press. They're really relying on influencers to promote these things. They're relying on their Omega partners. I believe is what they call them, or friends of Omega, Omega's friends, something like that. So that's weird. Okay, so let's start there. Better or worse? I think worse. I don't know. I think worse. Yeah. I think that, it seems like a dribble as opposed to an announcement. It seems like Omega is, a little bit, it almost seems indecisive. And I think I've always kind of said that Omega's dribble launch strategy seems a little indecisive, right? I think that as a top Omega client, right, trying to understand that client journey, I would like it if once or twice a year, my Omega rep said, "Hey, Christian, there's exciting stuff here. We'd like to invite you to come in and have a look, and we'd like your $20,000, please." This way, it's like 6 times a year, there's something really new and exciting. Not great. If everything's new, nothing's new, right? If everything's new and important, nothing's new and important. That's kind of how I feel. So getting into the watches themselves, they are two-tone Speedmasters, Moonwatches, traditional Moonwatches, 42 millimeters. They come in yellow, they come in rose, obviously both in stainless steel. I think they're both cool. I like two-tone. I think as a taste matter, or as a matter of taste, I think the two-tone's cool. I love two-tone Royal Oaks. I love two-tone Datejust, both new and vintage. I think that two-tone has a, very old, sort of rich look. But I think that stainless steel is easier to match. It's clearly less fancy, but it's also kind of one-dimensional. In color, it's objectively one-dimensional, right? Whereas here, you've got a lot going on. Definitely an acquired taste. Two-tone, people have been saying for years, two-tone is out. Two-tone's out of fashion. It's ridiculous. I don't think that two-tone was ever particularly out of fashion. I think that people have been wearing it well for a long time. I think people have been wearing two-tone well for a long time. And I don't know anyone that owned a great two-tone watch that said, "Oh, I can't wear that anymore. It's no longer in vogue." Are sales in two-tone up or higher now than they were 10 years ago? Sure, maybe. But I don't think among the tasteful, two-tone was ever a no-no. Two-tone watches have always been kind of ugly and cool. That's kind of the charm of them. It's kind of off-putting, and that's kind of what makes it awesome. Okay, the problem with these watches, and again, I really like the watch itself, to recap. I do think it's weird that Omega is not releasing them in like a logical or concise manner, all of their watches, but I like the watch a lot. The problem, it's $18,100. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a Speedmaster. The Rolex Daytona in two-tone is $20,000, right? That delta, not very large. It's actually pretty close, especially when you compare the regular Speedmaster, which is an $8,000 watch, to Rolex's $15,000 Daytona. The delta there is significant. So for a lot of people, the Daytona is objectively out of reach because you can't get them, but just out of reach even on the retail level, right? 8 versus 15 is significant, right? 18.1 plus, as opposed to 20, it's not significant, right? If you can afford $18,000, you can afford 20, right? If you can afford 8, doesn't mean you can afford 15. These are very different, deltas here. So I think that Omega's done very well living with a large delta, right? Delivering what is essentially Rolex quality for almost half the price. Right, in many instances, and there's availability. That's been Omega's value prop, right? Omega's value prop is where the quality is incredible, the respect on the street, meaning the credit you'll get for wearing it, is pretty freaking close to Rolex. It's not Rolex, but it's pretty close. They'll say it's just as the same, but it's probably not. And the price delta is significant. So there's a value prop there. Here, there's not a value prop. There's just not. It's just, do you like this watch more than you like a Daytona? That would be the difference in why you got one. Because you can get a two-tone Daytona. Like, those watches are gettable. Today's video is sponsored by our friends over at Squarespace. As many of you know, I am a huge Squarespace advocate and cheerleader. I love the company. This will be now my 10th year being an entrepreneur, which means it is my 10th year that I've been supported by the team at Squarespace and their evolving technology. And every year, Squarespace gets better and better, and their tools get smarter and more helpful. When I started my companies, Squarespace didn't have so many of the tools they have now, and I still love them then. Being able to build into your system efficient, organized client invoicing is huge. I know everyone says, oh yeah, I'll just manually I'll just manually do it. I'll just manually keep track like they used to do, like I used to do back in the day. But it is so much more efficient. Things don't fall through the cracks. And the truth is, no matter how many times you say that they're not going to when you're manually doing it, they do. SEO tools, another thing. SEO was not something that people were talking about 5 years ago for smaller businesses. Of course, big businesses use big SEO budgets, sure. But the truth is, the smaller guys never had that ability, never had the partner that could help them with that. Fluid engine system as well, dragging and dropping, being able to design a website so easily, really. Squarespace eliminates so much friction in building your perfect website that's not just hyper functional with all these tools, but beautiful, right? Being able to make blog posts, being able to move around web design on your homepage through your POS, everything, right? Last thing, flexible payments, allowing your clients to pay over time. Huge. That increases the likelihood to sale. It's decreasing one of the big objections. I'm a huge fan of Squarespace, as you all know, not just for people that are just starting their businesses and need a website, but people that have businesses with websites and digital partners that, as always, should try something else, should test the waters to see if there's another opportunity out there that can help you grow. Squarespace is definitely that partner. So head on over now to squarespace.com/Theo Harris to get 10% off your first website or domain. Moving on to the next point. Here's the real problem. Omega's trying to be Rolex at every turn. Omega's tries to be Rolex. Omega's trying to be Rolex every day. The problem is, if you go on Chrono 24, which is just on the market, right? This like aggregate of all these watches that are being listed, for sale in the world in all these countries, you can't get a Rolex Daytona in two-tone for a tenth of the price of retail, right? A two-tone Daytona from Rolex is a $20,000 watch. You can get for let's actually look it up. I haven't done this in a while. Clouds in my coffee. Clouds in my coffee. You're so vain, Roxanne. You don't have to wear that dress tonight. Remember 48 Hours? Yeah, when he's singing that in the jail cell and Nick Nolte comes in. The Daytona retail is $20,000, and the lowest you can get one, and it'll be an old one, and it's probably going to be coming from an international buyer, so it's not even really a comp because international importation of watches is not something that people want to do. It's $15,000, $15,000 to $17,000. That's pretty damn good residual value, right? I mean, pre-owned versus new is not very different. You can buy a million two-tone Speedmasters, of course, of different sizes and of different variations, but flavors. I mean, there are so many different variations because Omega's been making them for so long. But if you want a two-tone Speedmaster, you can get one for like $5,000. And if you want to go up to like $7,000, you can get like a great one, right? So that's a problem. Right, Omega is essentially selling an $18,000 watch that you can essentially scratch your itch for $6,000-7,000. And for a lot of people, even less, right? If you're not comparing exact apples to exact apples, right? That's not great, right? That's not a great look. So the proof is in the pudding. That in and of itself, You're not Rolex. No matter how much you want to be Rolex, you're not Rolex. You're not. So to recap here, announcement strategy, weird, not normal, not historically consistent with Omega or other watch brands. And I don't think particularly better, right? They're being divergent and I don't think it's better. So why, it doesn't make any sense, right? A. B, watch is awesome. Really like the watch. I'd wear it in a heartbeat. I love Omega Speedmasters. I'd wear a steel Omega Speedmaster. I think it's fucking awesome. I know a lot of people complain about the bracelets because they're like sharp now, but I think the proportions of the new bracelets are fantastic, right? There's that great taper. Yeah, I think they're great watches. And I love the gold ones, God knows. And those are great value in the secondary market. So great watch. Omega does a great job with the watch. But $18,100, at that price point, you throw out of the window a lot of the reasons why someone would even consider the Speedmaster. The Speedmaster, again, I laid out the value prop, right? And this does not fit into it. This does not fit into the classic Omega Speedmaster value prop. It doesn't. Frankly, the Omega Speedmaster is slow, as even in steel, is slowly no longer fitting into the Omega Speedmaster value prop. But because it's happening slowly, no one's being shocked and no one's revoking the title completely, right? Like with JLC, and they did a 40% price increase, and everyone was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't do that. Right now, I'm upset. Omega has been slowly, increasing prices, and over the last 5 years, it's been considerable, but it's slow. Plus, they changed the watch a little bit, so it's kind of justifiable, right? Like, it's kind of it's a quieter, less controversial way to increase that price point. And I think that they've done a really, really good job at it. But this, no bueno. It's not great. It's not so great. So that's what I think. Moving the conversation on to two, I think, way more interesting watches in their respective price points. Proportionally speaking, these watches are far more interesting in their respective price points. One vintage-ish and one new, both absolutely fantastic value, I think. Number one, Xiaomi. No one talked about Xiaomi forever, and then Xiaomi kind of blew up. These watches used to trade on the market for, $1,000 to $3,000, and now they've doubled and tripled and quadrupled in the last 6 months because this one jump hour watch has kind of gone viral. That jump watch, both mechanical and quartz models, are manufactured. I actually don't love the watch because it's so reflective that it's ridiculous. I would much prefer a brushed model, but this watch has absolutely exploded because it's kind of like Cartier's Tank Guichet paired with Cartier's Pebble, right? Like, it's this culmination of these two things, and it's exploded. And I think that rightfully so, they were really, really undervalued for a long time. But I still think that Xiaomi as a brand in that $5,000 to $10,000 price range is incredibly appropriate and fair. These watches, the quality of the watches is fantastic, but the design is otherworldly. I mean, actually, it kind of makes sense because a lot of it is spaceshipy. But this Xiaomi is absolutely freaking fantastic. Like, this watch isn't for sale yet. It may never be. I hoard watches that I love, and I don't like selling them, so I don't know if I ever will. But unbelievable wristwatch, a classic sort of disco volante case style with a power reserve in the bottom, an eggshell dial, blue numerals, blue hands. Xiaomi is really much more famous for their women's jewelry. It is a Parisian women's jewelry house, and they've had a lot of success on that front. But on the watch front, it's hush hush, zit zit, and anyway, just a fantastic watch. Haven't sold this. I'm a big fan of Paris as a city, big fan, great place, and I'm considering just keeping this to wear to Paris when I'm in Paris. Love the city, love the watch. I do think these watches will continue to increase in value. So you heard it here first. Actually, you didn't hear it first. I'm not first on this news. Other people have said it before me, but I am also putting the Christian stamp of approval on this. Next is this awesome Vaer Pacifico. The first thing I think of when I see this watch is this is a Roly watch. This is a my dad watch. My dad would literally wear this watch and probably never take it off. Fantastic Vaer, assembled here in the USA. Fantastic Tropic, a rubber strap, beautiful twisted lug case design, iota movement, 200 meters of water resistance, perfectly executed date window. I have the Rincon colorway, which is my favorite, but there are other colorways as well. There are other great watches in their collection, period. But I just think this watch is, a standout. I think this is not just a standout at Vaer, but I think it's a standout I think in the micro brand community. I'm also obviously a big fan of the fact that it's an American assembled watch. It's not their entire identity. Their whole identity is a surfer vibe. There's, some really cool vibes there. But obviously big fan of transparency, right? Meaning they're transparent. They're not putting just like American made on the dial and just saying that they're all American. They're totally transparent in the movements that they use, and they're fantastic Miyota movements, serviceable, long lasting, etc. But the fact that they are choosing to have these watches assembled domestically, which is more expensive to do, by the way, and still be hyper competitive with price at $700, I think is awesome. Right? I'm a Tropic strap guy. I will wear this watch a ton throughout the summer. Also comes on a stainless steel bracelet, which you can get. But me, I'm a Tropic guy. I love color. So if I'm going to be wearing a dive watch this summer, which I will be, right, at cocktails, because my sweaty arm will eat right through all my leather straps. Something like this would just be fantastic, right? Modelo in hand, Vaer on the wrist. Great watch, great people, big fan, full Christian stamp of approval on them. So go ahead, go take a look at their collection. I'm really proud to have them as a partner, as a friend of the company. I have no hesitation in recommending that you go on and take a look. Quality, design, and price point. You can't beat that in a micro brand. That's exactly what you're looking for. And good people, if you can have them. And the folks at Vaer are. So that's it. Head on over to Vaer. Thank you, Squarespace. And that's it. Everyone, be well. Go on and serve God. No. I feel that way, though. More people need to.